I bought lots of used boats, so I want to help you make better decisions when you go to buy used boats as well. Watch these 5 tips that I have for you when you're looking and searching for that new to you used boat. All right, what's up everybody? Today what we're going to be talking about is how to buy a used boat. Now, the first thing you're going to have to do is narrow down your search. There are a ton of different options for boats out there. Freshwater boats, saltwater boats, center consoles, bow riders, inboard, outboards, wake boats. There's just a ton of different stuff. So for me and the way that I fish and the way I enjoy the boat with my family, a center console is the way to go. Now that may be different for you, so make sure you understand what each one of those means. Now, a center console is basically the console's in the center of the boat, and there's tons of open storage. If you're someone that wants, some hiding or some ability to get away from the sun or even overnight, the center console is not going to be the best bet for you, and you should be looking at cuddy cabins, pilot houses, and things like that. But for me, I've narrowed it down to just center consoles, and that really cuts down the amount of searching I do. Now, of course, too, you're going to want to cut it down to price, but that can be a little more fluid, I feel like, as you start figuring out, where you want to spend your money and how you want to spend your money. The second, and I think, honestly, one of the most important things you're really going to have to look at, what type of engine do you want? If you're someone that, uses the back of the boat a lot, maybe you wakeboard, maybe you just like swimming off those swim platforms, an outboard may not be the best choice for you. You may be looking at an inboard, which just has the motor completely inside and just a prop shaft that goes out. So there's not much gear in the water. An inboard outboard, which is a hybrid between basically an inboard and an outboard motor. And then of course, there's just the outboard motor. Now, personal preference, I'm always going to go with the outboard. I find them really reliable. I have tons of good mechanics around me that work on them. And I just feel like those inboard engines sometimes can be more problematic. And for the type of fishing that I do and the crabbing and the stuff I do, I like being able to raise the motor completely out of the water so I can pull it up on the beach and I can get into shallower areas with my trolling motor or with my poling stick. So for me, an outboard's the way to go. And I've narrowed it down to center console and outboard. And that really helps narrow down my ideas. So my third tip is, once I've narrowed it down, I start looking on the internet a lot. Now, there are all different types of websites. What I've found now, the best place to find used boats for sale by sellers, by the owners, is through Facebook Marketplace. It used to be Craigslist, and sometimes you can still find a good deal on Craigslist, but Facebook Marketplace by far is the best place that I've found most of my recent deals. So really just go on there and start searching through the different areas. Now, it can be a little bit different. It's better to search it on a computer because you can get a better radius of where these boats are. I never just stick to my local area. I'm willing to travel up to around 300 to 500 miles each way for the right deal, because sometimes, a super popular boat, in one area is not popular in another. So I've been looking for a maritime skiff, which I found. So maritime skiffs normally aren't too popular in Maryland. They're much more common up in the Northeast. So my search included that Northeast. So when I'm starting my search, it's getting as many pictures as possible on those listings and looking through them, really combing through them, not just saying, oh, this is the perfect boat, and really combing through those pictures and understanding what those are, because maybe what you start to realize is the boat you thought that was perfect really isn't. The next thing I'm doing, and this may go against what a lot of people do, is I start sending messages right away. Any boat that I think has potential, I'm sending messages to the seller, and I'm asking questions about it, just kind of getting clarification. One, if they respond to me quickly, it's a seller I'm going to want to work with because I know that I can get something done with them and there might be some motivation to sell. Sending those messages sets you up to be able to negotiate. What I do is, once I've kind of identified that one boat that I want to buy, I start negotiating before I go see it. So I have a price set in mind that I'm going to try to get to with that seller over the internet, whether it's, either through Facebook Messenger or through texting or even through calling. I have a number that I'm trying to get to before I even go out there. I'm trying to do a lot of the negotiation up front so we know what we're walking into. Also, when this discussion is happening, this is the time you have to ask about the title. Some states want you to have a title for the motor, but for the most part, you want to make sure that the owner has a title for the boat and the trailer. A title for the boat is so imperative because it's so hard to register a trailer or register a boat that does not have a title. I would 100% stay away from boats that don't have titles. It can be done, and I've tried to do it before, and I actually done it before with one boat, but it was not worth the hassle. Find another boat, even if it's maybe if it's a super great price, but for the most part, you don't want to deal with a boat without a title. Now, a trailer without a title is a different story. Depending on the state you're in, you could get it registered in Maine. There's other ways around it. it, but still it's a headache. And if the owner has the title, it's so much easier to go from there. All right, so my third step is when I'm gonna go see the boat. Now, pictures only can tell you so much. And when I go see a boat that I've picked out as the one I wanna get, what I'm gonna do is make sure I look at the pictures before I go and note anything I wanna check out. So the very first thing that I'm looking for is I'm walking around on the deck feeling if there are any soft spots. Now, the nice thing with newer construction right now, there's not a lot of boats that have wood floors, but with older boats, especially center consoles, the areas where people have drilled in to attach the console or other things can have soft spots in them. Basically where the fiberglass and the wood has delaminated, and in worst case scenarios where the wood has actually started to rot. Now, it's not a deal breaker, but it's something that you need to take into. Even if you've agreed on a price, you might say, hey, I see a soft spot in this floor right here. I want to knock another $1,000 off the price. So walk around, see if you feel any soft spots. Soft spots feel like it's kind of giving under your feet. And you can even use a hammer to kind of test to see if that soft spot is a soft spot. It will have more of a thud than a ping sound, like a sharp sound that normal hard wood would have. The second thing I'm looking for after I walk around is I'm checking out the electrical, and not just what I can see. I want to get in the console and I want to see what the electrical looks like inside the console, because if it's a hot mess in there, 99.9% of the time, it's going to need to be redone. You're going to try to just kind of piecemeal it one by one, trying to figure stuff out, but you're going to get so frustrated that you're going to be ending up rewiring everything. If you have negotiated on this boat with the understanding that you're not going to have to do that, that's another bargaining point once you get there. Like, man, I didn't realize how much of a mess this electrical was. Hey, can we knock a few $100 off of this, because it's going to be a bear to take care of. Some other things that I look for while I'm looking at the boat is, I look at the transom to see if there are any holes in there that haven't been sealed from transducers or stuff like that. I also look at the motor, where the motor is bolted through, to make sure sealant's there. These are all really good things to check out, because if water gets into boats, it can lead to rot, and that's something you don't want to do. I look around to see all the metal surfaces to see if there's any excessive corrosion on the outboard. If it's been used in salt water, there's going to be corrosion. That's just the nature of being used in salt water. The older the boat, the more likely it is. So that's something that I always watch out for. And one of the biggest things that I will do after I've done my walkthrough and all that kind of stuff, and looked around for all these little kind of red flags that I have, I ask the owner if we already plan to do a water test, or I ask the owner if they'd be willing to do a water test or start it in the driveway or something like that. If they balk at that, if they say, no, there's no way I'm doing that, that to me is kind of a red flag, especially if, there's other issues that I've saw when I'm walking around. If there's soft spots on the floor, if there's electrical problems and they don't want to start it, to me, it's one of those things that I probably would say either walk away from the deal at that point, or try to get a little bit more off so you can account for those red flags that you're seeing. Now, after walking around the boat, don't forget the trailer too. So the fourth thing that I'm looking at when I'm looking for used boats is the trailer, of course. Everything can be great with the boat, and I've done this before. I bought a great maritime skiff in 1890. Everything was great. I knew the engine wasn't in great shape, but planned that out. But I didn't look at the trailer, and on the way home, this trailer was an absolute mess. I was lucky I made it back home, because when I got home, literally the wheel fell off. So you want to be looking in there and making sure that the lighting works, that the trailer lights work. You want to check to see if the hardware is rusted and stuff like that, and if general maintenance has been done. Now, honestly, trailer work isn't too expensive, but it can add up, especially if you're buying it really high. All right, so my fifth tip is really just kind of advice. Everything is a good deal at the right price. So don't be afraid to buy a used boat that maybe does need electrical work, has a soft spot in the floor. If you get it for the right price and you're comfortable fixing those kind of things. Now, having someone else fix those things, electrical and floors, comes with not only expense, but time too. So if you're thinking you're going to buy a boat that needs electrical work and a floor fixed, and you're going to buy it in April and have it ready in May, you're not, because that just is going to take a lot of time. So that's a good project boat that you're looking at. But for the most part, you're going to want to really understand that you can get a good boat for a good price, or you can get a bad boat for a good price that you can fix up. So when you're going to look at a used boat, it just depends on what you're looking for. If you want something turnkey, make sure you're looking at turnkey boats. If you want something you want to put some money into, make sure you're looking at boats that have that title, have the trailer, have the title, and has projects that you can tackle yourself, or you're comfortable with the time frame and the cost, and may take other people to tackle those used boat projects. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you on the next video.